Good afternoon, evening. I'm Robert Stone, the chair of the Underhill Selectboard. I'm going to call this regular scheduled Selectboard meeting to order here at 12 Pleasant Valley Road in Underhill. Today's date is the Thursday, the 26th of September. It is now 6 o'clock. We have a prepared agenda that we'll be using tonight. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
I just have one. I'd like to add a topic about the Class 4 roads topic to create a subcommittee to maybe expedite that topic a little further.
Okay, we'll put that in
Jennifer,
after the highway committee.
Additionally, I do have a hard stop at 8. I'll just duck out at that point.
Okay. Any other adjustments? Jennifer?
I would like to add to the warrant section a additional warrant that is just a signing of a warrant to allow us to do our heating contract for the season, which normally I would have had it in plenty of time, but unfortunately I received it yesterday and it needs to be signed before 10/1 in order to get us into the pricing that we so much need.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll put that in. Is there any other adjustments to the agenda? Seeing, hearing none, we will open it up to public comment. Any comment here at the town hall? How about virtually? Anybody virtually have any public comment? Seeing none there, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda is the NRIMC Arrowwood presentation report by our friend Sandy Wilmot. Sandy, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Hello.
Thanks for coming tonight.
My pleasure. I seem to be a repeat customer on this particular project, but
As long as you have a smile, we're good to go, you know, type of thing.
always smiling. That's right. So as you probably read in your in the memo, we have a finished report. It's awesome.
Very impressive.
We want to celebrate that with the rest of the community, and thought the first thing that would be appropriate would be to have Arrowwood staff come and tell us about it. They have a wealth of information. I went out one day with the wildlife scientist and just learned so much about everything. So the original contract we had did not have in it for them to give a final presentation to the town. So they came in under budget, and their estimate for the presentation is $1,500 to $1,800. In each step of the way, they have come under what they had quoted. So I imagine it'll be the lower end of that for their preparation time, travel. There would be two of them, one who's the wildlife biologist and the other who's the GIS specialist. And then to complete our package for rolling this out, after that presentation, which we hope would be an evening, like a Tuesday or Wednesday evening presentation, then we would offer several field trips, one having to do with the forest blocks and the wildlife habitat, and the other having to do with the wetlands aquatic systems. And I have tentative agreement from two Agency of Natural Resource staff to do those. So once we have the Arrowwood in place, then we can kind of schedule all of those. I really think that people don't read Front Porch Forum or the town reports and all of that. So I'd really like to send out a postcard to everybody that says, we're done this, we're gonna celebrate it, come to the presentation, here's the link to the report, here's a couple field trips you can do. Just hoping that more people get engaged on this and know that we've done it and can benefit from it. Following all of that, then we would start working with committees on the conservation and planning commissions on how to use this information, how to incorporate those maps into planning or conservation. And we have Jens Hilke from the Fish and Wildlife Department, who kind of specializes in this sort of thing he's all set to work with us on that part of it in the future. So that's our plan, and my request tonight is that you approve the request to spend a maximum of $1,800 for the Arrowwood presentation.
Okay. So why don't I'll move that we authorize up to $1,800 for the Arrowwood presentation. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Just a note, did you also want to ask though for the funding for the printing and mailing costs?
Yes.
So just think, if you want, I don't know, if
Can
you
we do
want
it
to amend
separate?
the motion or
We
maybe
do
a
it
separate
separate.
motion?
Let's
Okay.
do them separately.
Okay.
So it's been moved and seconded. So we're talking about the $1,800 for the presentation portion of it at this time. Is there any discussion about that?
And you had indicated you wanted to do this later in a timeline, a couple months out or something of that, so we can get notice to Underhill residents, or do
Right.
you have a time that you're looking at?
We don't want to wait too long because the field trips, we'd like to squeeze them in before deer hunting starts. So it really gives us, maybe a month to,
Okay.
I'm hoping for the end of October to have Arrowwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I read it, I was like, boy, the hunters are gonna love this.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I think this seems like a great idea, and it's a lot of work that went into this, and I think more ways to share the information more broadly with the community, I think makes sense. Especially since it came in under budget and the cost for this would still probably put it under what the overall amount was. I think that makes sense.
Sandy, just for clarification, so the Conservation Committee oversee this, or would you be overseeing this? Who would be overseeing the coordination of the presentation and all of the moving pieces that go along with that?
So this committee, the Natural Resource Inventory and Mapping Committee, really is a joint committee between Planning Commission, which I am representing, and Conservation, which Karen McKnight is representing, and Penny Miller. So yes, we will all be overseeing it.
Okay.
That committee really would be the responsible.
Okay. All right. Good. Just as long as it's clear in everybody's mind, type of thing, and go from there, because Brad can get pretty busy. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we had someone and it wasn't going to default to Brad or someone else.
We've been
type of
trying
thing, so
to
That's a good point.
keep you
Yeah, thanks.
out of it a little bit.
keep him as a designated hitter
Yeah.
when you need to hit the ball.
My only comment would be, I think I'd reach out to Ann Gelicke at Mount Mansfield Community Television.
Oh, yeah.
Because that way they could kind of pump it up on their site and then they could live stream it so people could watch it from home.
Could also record it.
Yeah, that would be excellent.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's good.
Any other discussion? You ready for the question?
Mhm.
All those in favor of supporting this in tune of $1,800, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And then Sandy, you needed some additional funding for mailing?
Yeah, the postcard printing and mailing and
Do we have a sense as far as what a townwide mailing like that would cost, Brad?
Jennifer might know better with the,
We did it for ARPA. We sent out for ARPA and I think it was under 400, I think.
So if we move to spend up to $500 for a postcard mailing, to support this, would that seem reasonable? I'll move, if so, I'll move that we authorize up to $500 of funding for printing and mailing of a postcard to be sent out and for the Arrowwood presentation. Is there a second?
I just wonder if 500 is enough, because it was 5 to 8 on the notes, so maybe it's 600 just to be safe, because what if it's 525?
Did I say 5? I meant 6.
Oh, perfect.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I just wanted to throw a thought out there. Certainly a postcard will reach some citizens, but I don't think that's the only means with which we should advertise. Some people don't look at their mail for weeks on end, and some people will get their postcard and they'll just toss it. So other means, front porch forum,
Facebook page.
Facebook, whatever, use other means as well to get the word out. Obviously posting it on our website here, the more we can talk about it, the better.
Yeah, okay. And Karen had suggested one of the Conservation Commission people is very creative. They make a poster to put up around town.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Just a ton of information in there that can be used by many different mindsets,
yeah.
whether it's planning, subdividing property, hunting, foragers, exactly. Yeah, I did see a mushroom section on there.
I did show the types of trees.
That's true.
Any other discussion? So we're moving to vote on spending up to $600, thank you, Dan, for our mailing and printing to support the Arrowwood presentation. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Sandy, the iron is hot. I don't know. Maybe you should ask for more, you know?
What else?
I don't know. What else do you need? Thank you again
I'll
for coming
probably
in.
be back.
Wear a lot of hats.
It's a wonderful report.
Thank you, Sandy.
Appreciate it.
It is a
Thank you.
phenomenal report.
Yeah, I
It really is.
It's great. Thanks.
Thanks, Andy.
That's
All right, Brad, we're ahead of schedule by 8 minutes, so we'll keep chugging along here. The next item on the agenda is to consider the ARPA resolution that Jennifer has sent to us. Jennifer's here. Good evening, Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. So it was brought to my attention by our auditors, who then had me consult with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, that the definition of obligating our funds by December 31st of 2024 means that we would have to have written contracts, which we do have, for example, for Sherry's digitization. So that money doesn't have to be spent, but we do have it obligated in the Treasury's definition. But the money that we have earmarked for the renovations to the building here and that other lump of money that we said was going to likely go towards the sidewalk project unless the select board decides to do something else with it, we won't have any kind of contracts for the bulk of that. So what they are recommending is that we sign a formal resolution, which basically takes the funds and obligates them and spends them. And it's kind of like a paper shuffle. It's all administrative, but it frees up that money. Basically, it's considered out of ARPA and it's now in our general fund to be spent as we've,
Kind of like reserves.
assigned. Yes,
Mhm.
but it's there and it's not in a reserve fund. It's in our general fund.
Right.
So but what that does is it allows us to, we're now like, we don't have to sweat it. We can get these projects done when we get these projects done.
Thank you.
Before the end of 2026.
Six.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was a sample that you provided in the packet.
Yes, which was, the shell of that was sent to me. It was VLCT's resolution.
Mhm.
I edited it to put the numbers in that correspond with the balance that we have that was not obligated. And then what we're required to do is to put we have to pick a specific account that we spent the funds on.
Okay.
So their recommendation was, what's one thing that's usually a big number that you can kind of find a period of time? And that was, I chose the highway payroll expense for a specific period because it was really close to that total number.
Okay.
I had to run a whole bunch of different scenarios to try and find it, but that's where I found it. Then I sent this resolution and the spreadsheet and my justification expense report to Katie Buckley, who's the VLCT representative, and said, will this work? Does this look good? And she said, yes, excellent. So that's why I'm putting this in front of you, so that if this gets signed, I still have the requirements to file with the Treasury Department each year in April until 2026, but I'll simply state that we have obligated the funds and spent the funds, essentially.
So I'm going to move that we adopt and sign the resolution as presented in the packet, so that we can begin to have discussion on that. So I'll move that. Is there a second?
I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Patty?
So Jen, help me with timeframes here. So this is a past period. So we're gonna use money from a year that's closed, our finances are closed.
Yes.
Help me with this in journal entries and such that,
It's basically, we're saying we spent it last year. So essentially what it does is it puts a surplus into last year for that amount
okay.
and puts it into this year's general fund.
So, all right, let's follow the dollar signs. So the surplus from last year, do we not have to vote on that for the town meeting?
No, because it's after the year, so apparently we don't have to. There likely will be a surplus for last year, but the auditors, obviously all of this has to be, I'm not making any journal entries until the auditors look at this.
Right.
And they're the ones who are gonna determine how to do this. So once the resolution is signed, then they will tell me exactly how to do the journal entry so that it's kosher. But apparently there does not have to be any, unless you were to establish a new reserve fund and put this into a new reserve fund, instead of just putting it into the general fund, then it would need to go to the voters.
Okay.
But we're not putting it into a special reserve fund. We're saying we used the ARPA funds, we spent them on general expenses or on highway expenses, and now we've got extra money. So as far as specifically what the journal entry looks like and how that works, I don't know what they're gonna recommend.
All right, I'm just trying to play this through, and I still have question marks. But so let's say we get through we closed the last fiscal year, we end up having a surplus, but it's going to be different than the 344. Let's say it's much smaller because we had an overage in something. I'm just making up numbers. Let's say our excess is $10 from last fiscal year. Just like, again, these are just hypothetical. I mean, I'm stress testing this right now. If we only have $10 in reserve from last fiscal year, then how can we? In surplus, not reserves, in surplus. Can we still take 344,000?
Yes.
From where?
From the ARPA funds. We're basically using the ARPA funds to spend to cover our general expenses. So it's just like a paper entry.
But the money is still going to be there, and it's earmarked. We've already established that that money is earmarked for these specific projects that we just have not spent the money on to date.
It's always been in our general fund. It's been sitting there. Right? We've been collecting interest on it. It sits there. So it's
basically saying the money that's already been spent came out of ARPA as opposed to came out of our general fund. That it's like retroactively saying like it's from this line rather than that line. So the money's already been spent. It's just sort of shifting the line from where it came from. Is that
it? That's true. And what Patty's point is.
My point is, let's say we have an overage on something else.
Yeah.
And we are not surplus for this past year.
We are
$10 over. I'm just being extreme.
Right.
But we don't have a surplus.
Well, we do have a surplus for last year. We don't know what it is yet, but the auditors.
But let's pretend for a second. We don't know exactly what the number is. If it's $10 or maybe it's negative, we didn't have a surplus, then what?
I can't answer that question.
Then we don't have 344,000 to spend?
No, we would still have this money. They would have to do a different journal entry.
Okay.
So, I mean, they might have to come back and say, you have to do it this way. I'm not making the journal entry, the auditors will tell me how to do it.
Exactly.
So,
Okay.
This was the guidance from VLCT. They know that the legislative body is required to take surplus funds and ask the voters, what they want to do with them in the following year. And this is different than that. So, yeah. I think it has something to do with the, I don't know if I have the note.
So ARPA was a grant, right? It was unexpected revenue, is the way I look at it.
Yes.
And versus a budget where the money was raised from taxes, that surplus
Totally
situation
get that.
is very
But
different.
we're using the ARPA funds to pay for expenditures that
But
are
we would've-
general.
But we would have paid for those with tax dollars.
I know, but it gets to the point of, let's say there's
She's saying
some
if there
other
was-
thing that happened and all of a sudden we're not excess
Right.
funds.
And
We don't have a surplus.
but we do. For last year, we will definitely have a surplus. And this will be in addition to whatever that
The good
surplus
thing is the books are closed, so we
Right.
know we have
Yeah.
we're confident we have a surplus. If
We
it
just
was-
don't
if
know
it-
how much yet, but yes, we
Do you
have a
have a
surplus.
general sense of how much?
More than $5.
Yeah.
10 was the stress test.
Yeah. I would say in excess of 100,000, but that doesn't mean that we can then take that money and decide what we're gonna do with it the following year, because we always keep 15% of,
Right.
so.
And you have some time on this, right? If there's hesitation.
Yeah, if you want me
This
to,
doesn't need to be done
No.
tonight.
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
if you,
It's follow the dollar sign.
I think it's a
Follow
good
$1.
question, so my recommendation might be to not pass this right now, but have me go back and ask that question to Katie
Okay.
Buckley and our auditors and say, basically ask your question,
Okay.
which I do understand what you're
You
asking and
understand
why
what
you're
I'm
saying
saying. Like,
it.
we had
If the surplus
something-
is lower than
44.
344,
Then what?
if it's then what is that money, then what do we do? So I get that, and I'm happy to go back and
Okay.
ask the auditors,
So the motion's on the floor.
Yeah.
So if the body does not want to move it right now, they can vote no. If they do want to move it, they can vote yes. But the motion's on the floor.
Can you table the motion?
Someone wants to move the table it.
I'm just wondering.
I'm gonna make a motion that we table it. If we have time, let's answer that question, just to
So-
make sure that we
So
don't have any surprise.
the motion to table would require a second, but you would need to have a date of when you want it to be brought back up. So are you wanting to table it to the next select board meeting? If you don't give it time, then it dies at the end of the meeting.
Table it to the next select board meeting.
Yeah.
So there's a motion to table this
October 10th.
Thank you.
October 10th. It's been moved by Patty, seconded by Dan. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of tabling this until the next select board meeting on October 10th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. So we have tabled this until,
And
Thank you for
applaud,
running that
yeah,
down.
applaud your effort in doing
Yeah,
this
yeah,
so that we don't have to give money back. These grant dollars we want to use.
Yeah.
No,
Thank
we
you
will.
very much for doing this.
I'll figure it out.
okay.
I always say when somebody throws money at you, you catch it.
You find a way.
Kind of like being at a baseball game, they throw the ball at you.
Yeah,
You're supposed to catch it.
yeah.
All right, so the next thing on the agenda, Brad, we're still ahead of the game.
Yeah, I see that.
The next is the review of the PACIF insurance audit report.
Yep, so Xander Jansen, he's fairly new with Vermont League of Cities and Towns, but he has a lot of experience as an insurance auditor. So we toured the town hall and the town garage and the historical society and the town pond. And I'm pleased to say that he couldn't find much because we've been picking away at different things. If you just want to review the town garage, I think it's basically, we're guilty of it too here at the town hall, is not doing a monthly inspection on the fire extinguisher. You're supposed to go look, check that it's been checked, it's full, and that sort of thing.
Does anybody have to be certified to do that, or can
No.
anybody do
No,
it?
anybody can do it. You just read make sure it's
I'll be right back.
Most of the.
Don't you have to
The fire
re-tag
extinguisher
every year?
checker.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, when the fire people come around and check them, they put a new tag on.
Okay, so they
And then
tag them for
we
us.
keep up it in between. The other thing, there was a power strip at the break room table, town garage, that might have been plugged into another power strip or something, or just didn't have a proper, it was plugged into an extension cord. No? What was it?
Appliance.
The microwave is plugged in.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, appliances quick.
So anyway, that's something that might want to recommend, have an electrician come over and put some extra outlets in the kitchen. That would be a simple thing for that. There was a little minor detail about the lockout tagout board, which is Russ can speak to, but I don't think it's really even worth mentioning. The other thing, let's see, eyewash station. Yeah, this was a very nitpicky thing, but he said the water line supply going to the eyewash station, or the supply valve, was not isolated or tagged. So he was afraid if somebody accidentally shut off the main valve, then the eyewash station wouldn't work. But that situation would be fairly rare, but I think you addressed that. Third thing was or the fourth thing rather was the catchment basin for the diesel tanks. We've had a catchment basin at the town garage for a long time, and the tanks are supposed to go in there. If the tank fails, it gets into this catchment basin. We do have the fire marshal signed a permit for that. Did you want to speak to that?
That was one thing I was going to bring up, just that we ought to start, instead of getting written up toward every time they come, we ought to get serious about finishing that project that was started some years ago. And I know it's been brought up, hence the reason we ended up getting the permit from the state. Yeah, I just would like to get that done.
Historical Society, the actual fire extinguishers are out of date, so I'll be in contact with Roger to get those replaced or refurbished or whatever they do with them. I guess you get new ones.
Every 6 years.
Every 6 years. Okay.
So they have to be hydrostatically tested, which means they have to take the contents out of the extinguisher and then they have to pressurize the cylinder. But sometimes the cost of doing that exceeds what the value of replacing it with a brand new extinguisher. So
Okay.
you really kind of have to watch, what you're doing, because that could be not very cost effective. So I'd be curious to see what the age of those are before we, go, buying a whole bunch of fire extinguishers.
Okay.
I would think that going forward that whoever our vendor is for taking care of that they make sure that they go to all 3 locations that we have and kind of go from there. That it's part of the contract that they not only look here at the town hall, but also at the garage and at the Historical Society building. And I would lay that at their feet, saying that that's their responsibility to make sure. And I don't know monthly going to, if we're going to be doing the monthly check, if that needs to be incorporated into someone else's duties that would be doing that here, or what.
We could all take turns. We could put it on the
We'll
calendar.
put it on the calendar.
Put it on the calendar, and each
Figure
of
it
us
out.
take a turn. We'll figure it out.
But that should have been caught with the inspections that they do every year.
Correct. I would have thought that would have been
Yeah.
something, but anyway,
I guess we're all human. That's what I want to say.
well, most of us.
Um,
Patty?
You're on to me.
The only thing at the town pond, he loved the fence and the way the whole place looked. The only thing he could find was there's some kind of fungus growth or biologic growth on the pickleball court, which could be slippery if it was wet. So he recommended pressure washing that. These are all medium.
Russ doesn't find it very slippery when he's out there playing pickleball.
He
do you,
doesn't,
Russ?
yeah, that's what
It's
they're
not
doing.
bad.
We know what pickleball is.
Trying to find it. And then the last thing was a fire extinguisher was too high here in the town hall. One was mounted too high. It was 5 feet. It should be at 4 feet. So very minor. And I think Russ addressed one issue that they had about the aerosol cans being mixed, and
We got a cabinet installed for all the aerosol cans, so everything's now installed.
he did compliment us. He said it's pretty rare that, he has to really look hard to find something. So we were happy with that.
Thank you.
Good.
Well, that brings us right up to consider the MERP grant application to the Vermont Department of Buildings and General Services.
Yep. So I gave a little memo in your packet.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and the state is really, we received the grant to do the assessments, if you remember, right? And we applied for that grant. We received it. Du Bois and King did the assessment of the town garage and the town hall. We didn't receive those reports until just like last week or week and a half ago, which was in between our meetings. We wouldn't even think about applying for a grant if we hadn't seen the assessments first. So the state really put us in a pickle. I think they're in a hurry to probably spend some ARPA funds or something. But, and then they sent us mixed messages. So Chittenden County is really not a high burden community, right? We're looking for like way out in rural Vermont where, some of these municipalities, they need some help. And, but then I think after Building and General Services thought about it, there's $38 million to give away, 500,000 per municipality. So that's, 72 municipalities basically if you gave full awards. And what I'm surmising is they said, well, maybe we won't have enough participation. So they released it to Chittenden County. I've been told by Ann Janda from Regional Planning that our chances are pretty much nil. But we've been working on this the best we can. It's like last minute, it's due tomorrow. The only thing that, and unfortunately, in a typical situation, we get the assessments, we'd go out and ask for estimates for the work and then have solid estimates to apply for the grant. But we don't have that. We do have lights. We know what the lights are going to cost in here. And I think Ravi from the Energy Committee has been working on the grant application. But some of the stuff we're going to kind of shoot from the hip and best you can do. However, I think it might be beneficial because if there are extra funds or different funding sources, at least we got our foot in the door, maybe.
Is it a ton of work to apply for this?
It's a lot of work, yeah. And it's kind of bumming me out because I really want to put more effort into it than I can. Ravi, I haven't touched base with him, but I don't know. I think it's worth a try. And I made some suggestions about, some of them are no-brainers. Like I could even, I was going to work on this tomorrow, but so we have there's a crawl space in here behind this wall and from here to the front. And basically it's a block foundation and it's uninsulated. So that's kind of a no-brainer. Let's get this insulated. There's an addition above Jennifer. Well, Jennifer is sitting in an addition that was built in the 50s, 60s, and the attic space above her where we keep a lot of files is uninsulated. So we could throw a number at that. Air seal some of the windows. My window is right. I could probably push it right out of the wall if I wanted to. It's
Don't do that.
I won't. And there's some others. So when they came in and did the assessment, they do what's called the blower door test, right? And they put that big thing on the door in the back, and they were really surprised how tight this building was. We did have the walls were foamed, or not foamed, but cellulose blown into the walls, and then the ceiling is quite covered. So it tested fairly well. retrofitting the lighting to LEDs, so we're in the process of that. So we do have an estimate for that. Ventilation upgrades was the biggie because they noticed that it's very musty and moldy down here. It's just, it's always got a hint. Everybody, a lot of people that come in comment on it, that it smells musty. And it's a basement. And I can tell you that in the wintertime, it's not the greatest place to be, but we make do. I think in order to do a ventilation system in an old building like this could be pretty tricky. So Janda gave us like a kind of a high number to throw at it because you'd be building chases or whatever for duct work, right? For air exchange.
That would look great, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
There's a lot of ceiling room for it. So.
Yeah, I know. But maybe we could use some of this wall space somehow. I don't know, but. And then really the goal of this whole grant was for, to reduce carbon emissions. And unfortunately, like Du Bois and King was looking at it more like how to save energy. But some of the other consultants that did the work were looking at more like solar and EV chargers and something that'll help us meet those emission goals where the Coalition Law Foundation is suing the state. So, anyway, so we thought we'd throw the EV charging station in there, and I think we do have some quotes for that.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit ahead, and as far as the town garage,
Dan's eyes just lit up.
Dan's got a new EV, he can plug
He's
it
got
in down
solar.
there.
You got two, you
An
can both.
EV car, too.
He's ahead of the curve.
So the town garage, I don't know if you read the report, I'll give you a copy, but skim through it. It's, they were making air sealing, insulating some of the walls, air sealing, insulate the roof. Now, we're gonna get to the roof.
Or not.
Or just leave it out of there, which is
we're
fine.
not. I don't think we need to go down that path right
Okay, that's fine. The one idea that keeps coming to mind, and I spoke with the consultant about it, is that, one way to maybe tackle that someday, if you want to talk about it or not, we don't have to.
now. I think we can talk about it when we have a visit in November. How about
Sounds good.
Then
Sounds good.
everyone will have a bird's eye view, so to speak, of the situation there, and we can talk about the town garage in detail.
Okay, so we'll take that out of the grant application. That'll make life simpler. Then they suggest lighting retrofit to LED.
I think the shop is LED, isn't it?
No, it was I have to read his report, but I thought they were the first generation something.
You're gonna have to put SPF 50 on. You put LED in there. It'll be sunburns as you walk in.
Oh, the heat pumps were the ones I wanted to, I forgot that for the town hall. So upstairs, if we ever did turn this place, once we have the generator going, if we turn this place into a cooling station or a shelter during events, the heat pumps would be beneficial. And that makes sense. That's helping with the carbon emissions, right? And he suggested the air-to-air heat pumps, not the air-to-gas. So air-to-air, and same with the town garage. So I think we can take a stab at it with the best that we know. And if we take the roof off the table, I think that helps. So I guess I'm game, and Robbie I know has been working on it all week. So
you're gonna put forth something and throw at it by the end of tomorrow.
Yeah,
so
that's our goal.
You don't need any guidance from us, or
just the roof was a good guidance. I'll leave the roof out, but if you're okay with like the foundation wall, the insulation, the failed window, retrofit at the lighting, maybe look at ventilation upgrades, throw a number at that.
What about every time it rains and the vaults leaking water?
That's not energy
Of
related.
course it is, because you get all mold in the water. And
Yeah, I know, but it's all about lowering the carbon footprint. I know what you're saying, but I know. But I think Robbie's got a handle on, I think between us all, we can get there.
that sounds like a gutter issue.
Yeah. So that's if
Do you need a motion or?
just consensus to
Consensus
say
of
it's
board
okay.
is to say it's okay for Brad to keep chugging away.
Put the roof in.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Put the roof in.
I agree.
Okay,
Agreed.
see how the segue worked right, you know, if you're all set, Brad, then we can move right to Russ.
Let's do that.
Russ, you're up.
I'm up.
We're, still way ahead of schedule, which is good.
Wait.
We were running ahead last week, but I don't want to curse us. I feel like we got ahead of ourselves.
No, we're doing real good.
Last meeting.
So I'd like to get approval to have Bob sign the road salt contract for this winter. From Cargill, price is stayed at $88 a ton delivered.
Was there a total on this?
Estimated tons is 600 tons.
Okay, so it's just the 88 times 600.
Well,
It's
that's
like estimated.
what we put in that we could use up to. We
Okay.
don't usually use that much, but
And we
because they order the salt per what we think we might use.
Mm-hmm.
So
And we have a surplus.
we have probably 2 loads in there,
Okay.
so not a lot. We didn't stock up at the end of last year because we have some talk of spraying our salt as it comes in, pre-treating it, so hopefully maybe use less salt. We haven't got there yet. So we may not end up doing that this year.
Okay. So you want a motion to accept the Cargill salt quote, at $88 per ton? So I'll move that. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, are you ready for the question?
You might want to add and authorize the chair to sign the paper.
So we're gonna move to authorize the chair to sign the informal quote letter to agree to purchase up to 600 tons at $88 per ton delivered. Does that cover it?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries 4-0. All right. Next up, Deane Road.
So I don't know if I'm the one that's supposed to really start with this. It was brought to my attention that this is going to be under my section tonight for some discussion. So I really don't know how to start.
Why don't you let Brad, because we received a correspondence that came in that Brad received, and then we can shift to you, Russ.
Okay.
So yeah, Duncan McLean from the Deane Squaw Betty Trust reached out, and I put a memo in your packet, but I failed to put his initial request back in July. But I sent that to you today. But the long and short of it was that they were looking for some help to clean out the water bars. And the critical channels that keep drainage or keep the road from washing out. And then I think Russ went up and took a look.
I did, and I got caught up there.
Was this
I took a ride up the other day, Tuesday I think it was, and took a ride up almost to the house at the end. They did have some work done up there that they apparently have done on their own, some water bar work, which looks very, very nice. Nice job. So there's so much work that could be done up there, and it's one of those things that, is it just cleaning water bars, or is it adding gravel? Is it cutting trees? Is it making a ditch? Is it, I don't know.
I think it would be interesting to know, because the statement was that there was some minimal maintenance done, which stopped, and that minimal maintenance seemed to have kept things going pretty well. Am I correct on that, Pete?
Am I supposed to sit and address or?
Well,
make an
the,
official
really,
statement, or
the
can I
question
do
should
it
be
from here?
addressed to Russ, if that had worked in the past.
Yeah, Russ may not know that.
Personally,
Answer.
since I've been here at the town, we have not been up on.
Correct.
Right.
That has not happened
Right.
in the last years.
Now, if the residents up there did some of their own manual work, like I told Pete when I saw him the other day, it was good, but he's done a bunch of work up there. Unfortunately, the road is shaped like this, so there's no other place for water to go other than where there is
So you,
water.
so you can put a water bar in, but where's it gonna go after it hits the water bar?
Just deflects out into the woods.
Well, the problem is in between the water bars, when the road is the ditch and you
Right.
don't have any kind of a crown on it, that's when the road gets eroded. And I think what you were trying to say is maybe the lack of that minimum maintenance
Mhm.
got away from us,
Exactly.
and then
Exactly.
we're in the situation where it is now.
Right.
If I'm,
Can I add one detail to Bob's comment?
that's up to Bob.
If you want, Pete, you'll have to have you come up and introduce yourself.
Okay, I shall, thank you.
I guess I'm just gonna, before you begin, because I don't want this to come back with others that, may come before the board because we have a public comment period.
Understood.
If it's the consensus of the board that they would like to hear from Pete, we can move forward with that. Otherwise, it's gonna stay within the select board and the town official. So is it the consensus of the select board to listen and have Pete join this conversation?
Yes.
Indeed.
So to answer your question, if you're driving up Deane Road on the left, it's the Ferguson's property. And there is actually a gully and a stream that kind of washes down the road and filters into their pond. So the water bars that are there and somewhat still in a certain condition do drain in to a runoff situation. They don't just go off into the woods.
Okay.
There is a place for that water to go. So there is a filtration gully. It ends up in a sediment pool that the Fergs clean out and maintain before it goes into their pond. So there is a place for that water to go to.
Now, this is all the way, are we talking from where we turn around, where it turns from class 3 to class 4? You're talking from there up, how far?
All the way up to almost the Bogues camp is where there is a stream.
Okay.
Beyond a stone wall where there's water that runs down the road. It's pretty continuous seasonally, but that's where the existing yet failing water bars filter into. So that's always been the destination of the water. It doesn't just go into nowhere. So just wanted to clarify that.
Yep, no, thank you. I guess my questions were, and I had called Russ when we got a copy of this, was to give Russ the heads up that, one, are we going to be able to get to this just before winter time? Because I know he's got projects that are lined up and I have no idea, and shame on me for not knowing, but I just don't know like what projects you have lined up. And then to add this on into the mix, do we have time, or is this going to be something that we would have to, put out to a contractor, and authorize up to so many hours for them to, do the best they can, given your work schedule with the guys, or what the recommendation would be as far as, Russ is concerned?
Our schedule is busy. We're trying to finish up certain projects and we still have sand to haul. We still have trucks to get ready for winter, which is usually done mid to late October. Because usually last year we started November 5th. Sometimes you get a nice break in November. It could be one of those fill-in kind of things. If you get good weather in November, we could pick away at it here and there. It's hard to say, but October looks pretty full for us.
Yeah. Good, Pete.
My recommendation, given that Russ is awfully busy, is that it is probably a very low priority, but it's not something that I wish to have ignored. I think the imperative would be springtime. As far as.
So if we're gonna have the ability to hit it, it would be now or not. Because I don't know how else we're going to be able to address the road in the wintertime, and then it's springtime, it's just like they're gonna be on, taking care of the class 3 roads and everything like that. So I personally don't know how, they would shift to go to a class 4 road to be able to, address that. It's like, it's either now or try to put it into the schedule for, next summer or next early in the fall. So it's on the schedule so that they can, work that in, but try to fit that in now. That's where I guess my concern is that I'm hearing from you saying that we've got everything lined up. So now I'm saying, well, if that's the case, which it is, does the select board want to entertain the idea of possibly hiring someone else to come in and possibly, look at that and put in, a day's worth of work to see what they can do.
I like that idea. If you're done, Bob, I do like that idea because some smaller equipment would probably work best up there. Chris Foley did the other work that was up there.
He had a compact excavator,
which looks phenomenal. So that would be a great recommendation if the board went along with that, because having smaller equipment to get up there, we could always rent something, but I think by the time you rent something and try to fit things in, and we could go all winter just doing class 3 maintenance. There's always stuff to do. And
I believe that we have some money in the budget for class 4 roads.
No,
Nothing at all.
no, nothing earmarked for class 4 roads.
The town's not obligated to do work on class 4
We are
roads, but one of the things that I think I wanted to be clear on is it sounds like because of the waterway that runs along the class 4 section, it sounds like it is what would be considered hydrologically connected. In which case I think that can be a reasonable justification the town can use for, I don't know where the money would come from, but I think that can be a reasonable justification for how we obligate funds to this specific section of roads without kind of opening up an obligation for all class 4 roads.
But don't forget that MRGP segments are not failed, because as I put in your packet the last time, gully erosion is the sole.
And that's the only indicator for
That's the only indicator for class 4 roads.
Got it.
Recognizing
But that also indicated after a foot, there was
1 foot is
right.
gully erosion.
Right. And I'm going to attest to the timing of the memo that you sent afterward in July. It was a foot deep. The gully erosion in the center, before Pete did any sort of maintenance to it, I'm up and down that road a lot.
Yeah, I didn't see that. Russ and I
So-
took a drive up there. We did not see gully
Yeah.
erosion, but I wouldn't be surprised if there is gully erosion. I would just also back up your comment, Maureen. If there ever was a justification, clean water would be one of them. I would just caution, where does it end, right? So if you do decide to hire a contractor to go in there, you're not satisfied with the work, where does it, it just has to be, there has to be some finality to it. Otherwise, you're going down a rabbit hole.
Understood.
And I would also like to point out the gate. So the gate is a bone of contention of mine. I've grew up here. I've spent my whole life here. I don't travel the Deane Road like Patty does probably, but I just don't feel it's right to put a gate up halfway up a class 4 highway and then have signs that almost look like it's discouraging, although I don't want to just say that's the only place that's happening. It's happening in other places. But this is solely my opinion. You can't have it both ways. If it's either public right of way that everybody gets to enjoy and no gate. So that's.
I would agree with that. I've grown up here all my life, and I think it's a bit rich to, ask for public assistance, but then keep a gate up. So if you want the public's assistance and public dollars, then I think the gate needs to go.
Can I just comment on the fact that the section of Deane Road where the gate may not be exactly where the McLean property begins. It may have been mislocated, but it's within the range of what is commonly used by the public up and down Deane Road, and then where it actually essentially becomes private property. The gate was put up because the place was robbed and it needs to have restricted access way up the road. I believe what we've been talking about as far as the Class 4 section of Deane Road is the lower section of Deane Road where people come to my place and people use Corbett Road and go to the.
But that's not the legal, so if you look at the mileage map, it goes well beyond the gate, up to what I believe was the old Shanley Farm.
Understood. Understood. I know that there's a proximity issue with regard to that, but we're not as Deane Road people that we're having this conversation. We're not talking about road maintenance beyond the gate.
I understand, but then my point being, I'm sorry to speak, I'm not trying to speak for you, but I just want to get this out for me, is that if the public has a right, the public has a right. If you're going to move the gate somewhere, the appropriate place to move the gate would be at the terminus of the Class 4 road. In my opinion.
I wouldn't argue with that with my opinion. I don't know what that determination is.
That's another subject. But we could, if.
That would provide security.
It would provide security. Again, I believe it's probably been mislocated within a couple of 100 yards, I would imagine.
Way more than that.
Okay, so that's something that we would probably want to take up with the McLeans. But the water bars and the work that Russ looked at up above the gate and below the gate are two separate entities, essentially. So the gate is kind of like a benchmark. But
and the real erosion is below the gate.
Yeah, I know where the erosion is. It's on the lower section.
Exactly.
The lower section's the worst.
Right, the water bar
But
work.
I think it makes sense if we're going to address Deane Road, I think it is reasonable to include the gate issue as well as the maintenance issue. I think there's no point in trying to like come back several times to a single issue.
I think I'd like to move the whole topic of the maintenance thing. We create a subcommittee and have that looked at, and we can come back and address this, at our next meeting. I'd be willing to serve on that committee, and we could work with Russ and Brad. If there's others that would like to participate in that, we certainly could step aside. But I think that there's enough comments here that I think warrant, having some other eyes look at this and come up with a plan of action of what we're going to do, because there is a lot of nuances to this, not just with Deane Road, but other Class 4 roads that we're going to need to take into consideration. We got some valuable information from Russ saying how busy they are, and looking to seeing if we are going to entertain this, who would we look at to do this, and what would be a dollar figure that would need to be done to take care of that problem. So I think there's some issues that we should be able to look at and report back to the board for our next scheduled meeting. And if that's okay with everybody, I think that would be a good use of our time.
Do you want volunteers?
Yeah, if you want to let me know, send me an email or whatever. It doesn't have to be right now.
I mean, I would be interested because I'm going to be clear. I'm up that road a lot. That's where we run our dogs in the fall. We just walk it recreationally, so I'm on the road a lot and certainly contribute.
Bring a shovel with you.
What I've seen in terms of the gullies have been 2 feet deep.
I've seen them that deep as well.
So why don't we, if that's okay, then the two of us can, get together, make a plan with Brad and Russ, and we'll go up and then we can research, whether or not we're going to look into like having a third party, see what their availability is, and then what we can, do to try to make the folks on Deane Road somewhat happy, and kind of go from there if we're going to tackle it at all.
Sounds good.
And then report back to the board as a whole.
Just to clarify, that's just for the maintenance issue on Deane Road.
That would be my guess.
And it would also make other people who use the road happier.
Right.
The only
It's
thing I
not
just
just
want
for
to
the
say,
residents and the owners of that.
I just wanted to clarify one thing about the length of the road, or the terminus of the road. I'm basing that solely on the mileage map. We will find the survey here. I know I can find it. I probably put my hands on it pretty quickly, and we can actually lay that out and see the length of it.
I think that would be helpful to have at the next meeting too.
But you got to remember, this mileage map is, put together by people that knew where the end of the town road, they've been in existence since the 30s. So the people that put the select board that put that mileage map together knew where the terminus of that road was. And
It's over a mile, isn't it? Mile and a quarter.
It is, I think it's, yeah,
It's up there quite a ways.
it is.
Yeah.
Mile
And when you level out, you can see there's a spot where there's some old paddocks and, yeah.
I just want to make one final comment. The reason that I think it was helpful that Russ, I bumped into him the other day. He mentioned that the McLeans had hired somebody over the course of the past few years to put some gravel in a few spots, modest improvements, and recently cleaned out the water bars. It was a good indication because the complexion of the road is very similar beyond the gate, regardless of where that terminus is, and below the gate, how minimal maintenance actually has been effective.
Exactly.
It's a good reflection of like, all they did was spend a day cleaning out the water bars and the water doesn't wash out the road below it. It hasn't been done. So there's a very good kind of commentary. Yes, I know more.
That's
Thank
good
you.
comparison.
Yeah, well, it's good information.
Good discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're going to move on to the Class 4 Subcommittee. Dan, you wanted to have added on to there. Thank you, Russ. I think we're at that point where Dan wants to have some questions about the subcommittee or formation of it.
So I talked to Brad and I talked to Dan about forming a subcommittee to look at the Class 4 roads report that had recommendations and observations. And I thought maybe the three of us could create a subcommittee to look at that report and begin tackling each of those roads. And one of the select board's support or comments on that idea, feedback?
I would support creation of a subcommittee. I'm just caution the group as far as Brad's availability, because we are burning a candle at both ends with Brad. So if just be mindful of that.
That's easy stuff for me because it's not something I need to do a lot of preparation.
I appreciate you more than you know.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about that, we do burn the candle at the both ends, and it's many little things that you think are very easy, but they all add up to, to your well-being. So, just be mindful, or we need to be more mindful, I think, or more aware. But I appreciate you, Brad.
Thanks.
Because there is a system that we know pretty well in dealing with Class 4 roads, especially if we decide to throw some out. That would be out of the purview of a committee. We would just throw it to the board because we have to go through an official process.
Right.
So I would think that the work of this committee would only be to funnel things more clearly and quickly. Not do a whole lot of work on it, because the work has to be, under observation and transparent and involved in official patterns. So
The D2B committee.
There you go.
I think it's a great idea though too, to we don't want to delay on it, but yeah, I think making the recommendations actionable is
That's the goal.
a great plan. And how to, do it one bite at a time or tackle it one step at a time makes sense. So thank you for the initiative.
So is that consensus of the board to go ahead and have a subcommittee?
Makes sense.
Okay. Thank you for offering to do that.
Yeah.
Everybody, Brad included.
Sure.
Okay, that's that. Now we're right back to you, Brad. And it's 7:00, 7:35, so we're still ahead of schedule.
Good.
Go slow.
I will. So 12 Dumas Road to FEMA buyout, we do have some breaking news on that. As you remember, about a month or so ago, Bob signed the voluntary transaction agreement. So Patty has also signed it.
Not this Patty, the other Patty.
No, right, Patricia Gray
Gray.
has signed the owner of 12 Dumas Road. And I sympathize with her position. The house has been in her family for 100 years. It's not an easy thing to come up, to come to that decision and decide maybe to move somewhere else. So, but she seems to be committed. She has retained an attorney, and I met with that attorney and Lisa Kolb from Vermont Emergency Management. We had a great discussion. That attorney is also working on another buyout with Vermont Emergency Management. So I think that should make the process a lot easier, because now we have an attorney to consult with, and actually right after that, the voluntary transaction agreement was signed, and I've scanned and sent that off, so we're on our way. The grant deadline for that is April 17th, so we'll see if we can make that, or we'll need an extension, but as of right now, we're staying on track.
Good.
Sounds great.
Good job.
And I did bring up at the DRB meeting on Monday for the Harvest Crossing project, there's a lot of talk about floods and things, and I did bring up, or just enter as evidence, that if the town is successful with this buyout and the house is gone, now we own that property. So no mitigation can really be done. You can't fortify the bank or make it so water comes in. But if flooding was imminent and we had to exercise emergency protective measures, we have full access to that property now. We could actually have pallets of sandbags ready to go and load it on a truck and go right in there and probably save Meadow Lane. So I think it's going to be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Maybe not Roaring Brook, but
Maybe not Roaring Brook, but yes. So planning and zoning position update. So we have, Jennifer and I have a meeting with regional planning, Charlie Baker, the director, and Taylor Newton on October 9th, I think, to meet to discuss the position, and we have a template of a kind of an agreement template, work agreement, that we'll look at between now and then, Jennifer and I, and a job description. So the whole idea again was maybe get Chittenden County to regional planning to feed us with planners and zoning people, in a hopes for that there's room for them to grow there versus here. If some person comes here, there's no place to go. This is it. You're going to stay here the rest of your life. And if someone is more aspirational, right? And this way it gives them a room to grow in regional planning, and then they can just feed us with someone else. So it could be a continuous cycle that they could feed us. They would pay for the employee. Since they're a government entity themselves, it works better. I don't think you could do this with, say, a private firm, right? Because you need that government immunity. So we'll see. Well, the more to come, but I hope this works out.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And then Sherry put a little memo together about, we have had several complaints about how the town hall looks. And what's happening is I went out on a nice sunny day and I really kind of analyzed it. It's interesting. So there's these little flying ants and little teeny flies
all over.
And they come into the building, but because they're coming into the building, there's also these teeny little spiders, like microscopic spiders, that cast this web underneath the clapboard. And they're catching these flying ants and little teeny
Well, that's good.
flies.
You need
right?
some meat eaters.
Right. But the problem
Go out
is,
there with brooms, and then like a week later, they're back.
they're back.
Yeah.
So the idea is
We're living with nature.
Yeah, we are.
So the idea is to, the request is to, and Sherry has kind of taken liberties to schedule these people because we're running out of time. So it is building maintenance. It's going to be about, I think it's around $1,800 to have the entire building pressure washed. October 1st they had come, and this would be their last job because they don't do it after that. Then I talked to a guy that has done some pest control for me. He lives up north, Best Choice Pest Control, James Bushy. Jim Bushy. Good guy. Knows a lot about, I had a carpenter ant problem. He got right out of it. He sprayed my house before when I had a major beetle infestation. I'm not a big advocate of spraying, but I think in some situations, if we get this building clean, that we should spray it.
Yeah,
treat
otherwise
it,
you
treat it.
just
Otherwise, they're
have
going to
to
come back.
Mhm.
There
So-
are non-toxic
Mm,
people who spray.
yeah, he's not one of those guys, but.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we have hired a non-toxic place, and it's, when they spray, and they have solved our problem. It smells like cinnamon. I mean, really is, and they do it,
Probably that's what it
but
is.
that might be
Cinnamon water.
something to look at in
Or
terms
Fireball.
of an estimate.
We
What's
could,
the
if the
fire-
board wanted to do that, I'll be straight up with you, it's probably a nerve agent he puts down on the wood.
Is that a
I'm
good
just
idea?
gonna lay it right on you,
Yeah.
but it's,
Before the general
but it
election.
doesn't have like this long half-life, you know? So it's what, and then building's been done before, we had a problem before, he came in many years ago and did it.
Here,
Here, yes.
I could get you the name of that person.
I'm more than happy to check into it.
If you wanted to
Sure.
get a cost estimate for, you
so
know,
I
either
assume,
one.
I assume it's the consensus of the board to go ahead with this $1,800 to get the outside of the building cleaned up and taken care of.
Yes.
And it's the consensus of the board that continue to look into Mr. Bushy and Dan's exterminator, and then we can have that portion revisited, but at least get going on the
Yeah, I think,
side of it.
so they would come basically next Tuesday to do the pressure washing. And then we'd want to probably spray the building before it got, you're gonna want the building to dry.
Right, but I'm thinking bugs are probably coming to the end of their season, so the active new
Maybe,
things probably aren't so active.
maybe we could actually postpone spraying until spring. I'm not,
Why don't you report back at
I'll
the
find
next
out.
board meeting, and then we can
so we'll go,
revisit that part of it, but we can at
Pressure
least
wash.
let's get it washed and cleaned up.
okay.
Is this the
Maybe
guy?
go over to
over
the town tennis courts at the same time.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Sure, maybe.
yeah.
It's pickleball courts, it can't be slippery.
We're gonna have to start issuing town-issued non-slip socks like they do at the hospital, you know?
Can I say something? I'd like to say something.
Just one thing.
So this company that was gonna pressure wash this building was very rude to the town of Underhill back this last winter on social media with the highway department, and ran its mouth a lot. So
So why are we doing this then?
I'm not saying you shouldn't use them. I wanted to voice my opinion as somebody like that.
So somebody had a beef with a plow event, is my guess.
A justifiable beef?
Just total, the comments were that we were the worst road crew in the state. And we could get the trophy for the worst road crew in the state. This was during the windstorms, back to back,
Mm-hmm.
plowing in between. Just, that's my 2 cents. Just want
Right, I mean,
all to be aware.
Not knowing any of
Of
the
that.
details behind that, I don't know if there was a justifiable reason why somebody was complaining.
Well, they probably had felt it just.
Okay, so I think that comes into play on whether or not.
This is somebody Sherry called just for.
No, I'm not-
I'm
Sherry under the bus.
I'm not
Well,
throwing
why
Sherry-
aren't we
I'm not throwing
getting
Sherry under the bus at all.
estimates?
You can't find many people that, I think Sherry did call around.
Again, I want to make clear, I'm not throwing Sherry under the bus.
No.
And it's up to you folks anyways, but I just wanted to be clear that
Right, well, that's not
I don't
enough
like doing
information.
business with
Yeah,
What's a different,
people
Right.
like that.
right.
Yeah, I don't know. Business and personal is kind of separate, but I don't know. I know what you're saying, Russ.
Yeah.
But if somebody's gonna crab after that January 9th wind event, where we had
Right.
9 trees over our kennels and the place was
I
like
know.
a bomb went off,
Right.
you don't complain about the road crew, and then that weekend, we had another windstorm.
I know.
It's like, come on,
Yeah.
people.
was it you that was complaining?
What's that?
Was it you that was?
We have an executive session. We are ahead of schedule. So we can possibly discuss that, because I think we're getting into almost like a personnel type issue, type of thing. And I don't know if we really want to be on the record as far as saying too much. But I would welcome if you want to continue to have that conversation. We can do it behind somewhat closed doors and kind of go from there.
Sure.
I appreciate you speaking up and saying what you said, and I'm not dismissing it. I just think that, if we're going to take further action, then we should probably do it behind closed doors and then come out.
Need more information.
Fair enough.
Can we just get through the little bit we do and do it at the end, or?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. We'll come back and revisit the town hall exterior cleaning after executive session, so that'll be a topic that we'll talk about then.
All right, so the last thing I have is,
Oh, yeah.
and then I do want to comment on a few of the correspondence over there, but this was in your packet, but I'll give you a little,
Oh, isn't that helpful?
Yeah, that's
just give you a little flash here of what we've got. Our neighbors are planning to the south. This is the old mill property, and it was in your packet, but I just want to make note that there's 2 main streets here proposed coming out onto Park Street, which we control. But just keep this in your mind here for the discussion. And it's right here if you want to look at it further, but it's also in your packet. But I'll just start from the latest event and then go backwards. So again, Amanda keeps good track of what's happening in Jericho, and we all try to, but so there was a subdivision proposed 37 River Road, and we basically came to the realization that we waited. I was on vacation that week. It was right around Labor Day, and I gave a little bit of time thinking that we may receive notice when this subdivision review was happening. So any municipality within 500 feet of the town line is required to get notice of a subdivision review hearing. We've never received, to the best of my knowledge, a notice from the town of Jericho, ever. I send them out all the time to them when we have a subdivision within 500 feet of the line. While we're not necessarily opposed to anything that's going on with this latest subdivision, 8 lots, it was just, I felt it was important to point out their shortcomings again. In their defense, they claimed that they did, and you'll see in the email correspondence, I think, that they did provide notice, but they used our personal address here instead of our PO box. And Larry Burke, the firm, has done work here. They've mailed us plenty of correspondence. I was kind of surprised at that. And then when I asked them, as you'll see, the application is here, and it says see attached abutter list. There's no abutter list attached in the packet. I asked for that. I did receive an abutter list, but with a updated abutter list with our correct. And since then, we did get a letter, not certified, but a letter stating that the hearing has been postponed till October. But it's just, like I said, I'm not signaling out this one subdivision because I think it's fairly minor in nature. It's not as important as the mill property subdivision that directly abuts our street. This is off to the side.
But this, sorry.
No, go ahead. It's just.
This is contiguous to the mill property.
It is
right?
contiguous
Okay,
to the
sorry.
mill
I want to make
property.
sure I was
Yes,
clear on that.
correct.
Thank you.
And while I don't think there was a response to my letter from O'Leary Burke, kind of explaining that there's a few deferred lots. It's not just 8 lots total of like full development. I think there was like a 4-plex and some single family homes. He broke it down, trips per day, so on and so on. And like I said, I don't think we have any concern with this particular subdivision, but if you look, there's streets that just dead end into the boundary. So it appears to me it's nothing more than it's going to be an expansion of the greater Old Mill property, but I can't say that for sure. The bigger concern is with the Old Mill property. Traffic on Park Street, I'm getting some preliminary counts by the post office of over 1,000 cars a day driving by there. And with two, we're looking at, I don't know, there was a recent article in Vermont Digger with the senior housing project where they're proposing over 100 units. And these two roads coming out on the Park Street, I think are going to be utilized a lot more than people think. The level of service is so poor at the Brown Street or River Road, Route 15 intersection, you can't get out of there. I can envision everyone in this Mill Street property, if these roads were to go through, utilizing Park Street as a go-around.
Absolutely.
So while we're not, what I feel like, and I've stated this in every single letter I've written, we're not like opposed to development in Jericho, but what we are opposed to is the implications of the traffic, and how are we going to mitigate that? How are we going to deal with that?
Aren't they required to do a traffic study?
They did do a traffic study. If you read my, let's see,
They used a traffic study from like 1977.
Yes, 72 or 77. That was in the January 5th letter.
Yep.
So it may come down to that.
That's real current.
That we may want to invest in doing some more detailed traffic study than just the signs. I did look, the counters, the tubes you see going across the road, they're really pretty inexpensive, and they just count. So there's a tube in front, tube in back, so you can tell.
Doesn't the
which way.
CCRPC, provide that?
They can, but I think we may want our own independent. I don't know. We could ask them, but
I like the idea of having
our own data. So I could look into that a little further, but it's the overall concern of, so when we didn't receive notice for the latest Warrant subdivision, and again, which I don't think we have an issue, but I did go down, bring it to the town administrators, bring it to her attention on Friday, after we met, Maureen did the cone thing.
Yeah.
And she apologized, and I would have expected to see, to have a call on Monday, trying to at least say, hey, we got your address wrong. But so I kind of waited for that call, and then Wednesday, the night of the hearing came, and that's when I put that letter together, put it out, and actually went down to the hearing and just submitted the letter. The letter is up on the website. It just feels incredibly awkward for me and difficult because, we share so many things with Jericho, fire department,
Exactly.
a library, a park,
Right.
water district.
a water district, many things, and why it just kind of baffles me why they've kept us in the dark about this the whole time. And basically we delayed this final hearing of this major 100-lot subdivision. And again, didn't make a big stink. We had certainly justifications for an appeal if we wanted to. Notification it's paramount, especially with a neighboring municipality where you're. So, but make no mistake, no one's coming out on the Park Street without our authority or without your blessing. And beyond that, there's actually a sliver of land in between the town line and the right of way. So we're not talking just all road. We have, the town line goes through all those homes in the front. So anyway, I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I've talked with our attorneys about it. Joe, before he moved on to become an environmental court judge, we kind of bounced around the idea that maybe the select board wants to send a letter to the Jericho Select Board just stating our concerns about not being notified whatsoever
Mhm.
during this whole process. And why is that continuing to happen? There's also another subdivision that I put in here, just a copy. This is the 22 Park Street, where you'll see there's a 4-lot subdivision that was approved. And I pulled the minutes from that, and the DRB in Jericho was obviously ignorant to the fact that any land in the front belonged to Jericho or belonged to Underhill, because they talked about having trees cut, they talked about having stone walls moved within our boundaries.
Really?
So there's a big disconnect somewhere happening. They have no authority to do that.
Mhm.
And even if an entrance is pre-existing, if the use changes or there's more traffic, we get a say in that, right? So my biggest fear is like, what happens to Park Street when this development gets approved, which may be able to skirt Act 250 because it's in an exemption area for up to 50 units. I don't think VTrans has been notified of anything. I've never seen any correspondence from VTrans. So I don't know what's going to happen to Park Street when you put another,
In reading
several
through
hundred people.
cursively all of the material, and maybe I didn't understand it right, but I thought they were making the argument that, well, what's going on to Park Street is only for, 2 houses or, 4 houses. But it doesn't look like that on that map.
Yeah, this is 2 separate subdivisions. Like I say, I don't think there's the 8-lot subdivision that's being proposed. I don't think we have any beef to say there. The point of the
Okay,
matter
that was a different one, all right.
the point was to get out and say, hey, again, we didn't get notified. And why aren't we getting notified? And I don't care if the certificate of service is what we call it here is not correct. I'm not going to take an applicant's list of abutters and just blindly trust that, right? I'm going to verify that list is correct. We do it every time, and then it's checked off and sent.
Well, Brad, do you think the Underhill Selectboard should draft a letter explaining what our concerns are in very plain English and detail, and send it to the Jericho Selectboard? That, these are the shortcomings that we see, and we would like to continue to work well with one another, and like to get a response back from them as far as what our concerns are as it relates to these projects that are going to impact our street.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And like I said, the Warrant subdivision on River Road, I don't think there's nothing really we can say. This is the bigger.
Okay, so those are 2 different.
This is 2 different things. Right. It was the point of the Warrant subdivision was just to bring to their attention that, hey, we didn't get notice. And then it was brought to my attention that, oh yeah, there's some letters here that didn't make it to you. Well, I haven't seen copies of those letters, but if a letter didn't make it, if it said failed to delivery, when you try to,
Yeah,
when you research
meeting
it
the
and say,
obligation of
If they were
notification.
certified letters, they would get pretty quick feedback on that, I would think.
they did, I think, but
I think a letter is a good idea, and in general, acknowledging the special relationship that is between the towns and the desire to collaborate on, because it's the Riverside, what is it, it's like a special designation that has got both towns are part of it. And I think we want to be collaborative with Jericho, but also we cannot be collaborative on things that we're not notified about and want to do that. And I think also probably commissioning, I don't know what the cost of a traffic study would be, but I think starting to explore that for Park Street is probably worthwhile, because I think, there's only going to be continued increased use of it, especially with this, but even without this, there's already a lot of traffic that gets on that road.
I also think that we need to caution the town of Jericho, or maybe we need to insist upon that VTrans needs to be, because that's going to impact many residents of the town of Underhill. If this project and I'm sure it will go through, it will impact the large majority of the residents of the town of Underhill as they make their way to go into Burlington.
Mm-hmm.
With the increased traffic that this project will cause, not only on Route 15, but onto Park Street as well, and River Road.
And it's pedestrian safety too. It's not just
Mhm.
traffic, right?
Yeah.
And I think Park Street numbers are beefed up because the intersection of River Road and 15 by Jolly is untenable.
Yeah.
And I see many people when I'm going in the morning, they either come from the direction to go on Park Street. That's how the school bus goes after it drops off kids, at
Mhm.
Browns River. They go back out. And there are many cars that go that way. Plus, there are many cars that travel down River Road and don't want to deal with it, and so they just turn right. But people who are dropping off kids at the school, they make a U-turn and go out Park Street.
Mhm.
And, and I think addressing that intersection is really vital. And also Dickinson Street is an important aspect. Now, I'm not sure they're waiting for that till all this goes on, but I would hope that it's part and parcel in the package.
So I guess I'm getting the consensus is that we would like to send a letter to the Jericho Selectboard that Brad can draft or have our attorney draft a pretty plain English letter of what our concerns are, and that we would like to have feedback from them, that this isn't just a one-way street, no pun intended.
And the
You know what I mean?
concerns-
That we want feedback from them because we want to collaborate with our neighbor, but it seems like, we are not being considered for various unknown reasons. So I think that we need to do our best to try to, take care of that. So if you would mind,
Oh, absolutely.
that I think that is the consensus of this board is to,
Mhm.
try to move that forward. And I think the consensus of this board, if I'm reading the room right, is that look into getting one of those counters that you feel that we should have on Park Street, and we can, I would think that if it's something reasonable that, we could just get that.
Yeah, I almost see, like, I've been thinking about this. You'd want one, at the Park Street River Road intersection. You'd want one on the Jericho side. You'd want one on the Underhill side.
Mhm.
Same goes for when it forks on Park Street. You'd want one on that left fork, one on the right fork. Now you've got all the data. Which way are they coming?
Mhm.
It's all there.
Is
Yeah.
it timestamp too? Does it take the time interval?
That's a good question. I bet they do.
Because it's during rush hour that people
I'm sure they do.
take it when it's the drop off
Yeah,
for the
they do
school or
time.
pick up for the school. People go right, go up Park Street instead of going by the school.
Yeah, so right now the sign that I have, or the two signs that we have, I'm having a little hard time with the eastbound sign, which is down there by GR Place and Phil's store, because there's a lot going on there. It's hard to get accurate data, but I'm still working on it.
Mhm.
But the one going westbound near the post office, I'm getting solid numbers on that, and they are anywhere between 1,000 to 1,200 cars
Yeah, I
per
believe it.
day.
I believe it.
It's a lot of people.
And you can tell the intervals. It's right around the school times.
Yeah.
This is a
I think if we could, once you have a minute, I hate adding to your list of chores to do, but I think publishing some of that preliminary data, in the Mountain Villager or, Front Porch Forum, and have a link on our website and draw people there to see, like, make people aware of how much use this road is getting even before this development is coming, into play. Just like
right.
it's a very busy road.
It is. That'd be a great thing. I bet Amanda would be good at that. She
Yeah.
could get her
I'll
to.
write something up.
Yeah, and then we could we can generate multiple reports about speeds and then also, I've got the portable sign up on Poker Hill. Russ and I put up so we've got all three signs now where we want them to be
Sweet.
the permanent ones. And
That's
then
great.
the rover that I have, we kind of move it around.
Mhm.
But I also have that on Poker Hill. So yeah, you could just publish data. It'd be interesting, I think, for people to
Mhm.
know. So I will work on the letter. And again, there is the hearing on, I think, the October 9th or 10th, whenever it is, it's a Wednesday. I don't think there's anything, our letter was submitted, I think it states the concerns we had before.
And they will have to address that.
Yeah, it's in the packet,
It's in
so they will have to address it, but I can't control what they do and they don't do, but, anyway.
Well, thank you, Brad. I
Yeah.
appreciate your time into all this. I know it's not been easy.
No, it hasn't been, and it's really something that's it's kind of needless, to be honest with you, but, that's the way it is.
Thank
Well, it is 7:35. I know Dan has a hard stop at 8, so we might be able to get through almost all the information while we have you. Is there any closing, we're at that point where we're at closing public comment period, unless anyone has any final questions for Brad.
I'm sorry, sir, could I get your name just for the record?
Oh, yeah, I'm Deane Bingham.
Oh, right. I
Yeah.
thought, I know this guy, we met. Okay, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you, yeah. I came in a couple months ago and I grew up on English Settlement Road. I recently moved back to Irish Settlement Road and I went to a planning commission meeting this week and interested in taking part in one of the voluntary boards in town. So just been here to listen to and get back up to speed, but yeah, nice to see you all. And yeah. We'll hopefully be seeing my face around some more.
Thank you
All
for
right.
coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Any other public comment period or any other public comment? Red Sox are out of the finals.
Can I
Dan.
say one thing?
You just interrupted. I was just having a moment with Dan.
That's in the correspondence,
Oh, okay.
but when we get there, we can. Yeah,
Never mind.
absolutely.
It's on.
Clearly not a Red Sox fan. We don't need to take a 5-minute pause, or anything like that.
Are they playing tonight?
I think they're all done.
Oh.
Well, they're not gonna make it.
I'm just kidding.
They're not gonna make it in the finals, but that's all right. We'll move on. Unfortunately. So no more public comment. Review, approve AP warrants minutes for the September 12th meeting. Oh, why don't we do the pre-buy, because you're at the table.
Okay, yes. So, we have been doing a contract the last few years with, Jack, of course, for our, propane. And it's less than a penny increase over last year, which is pretty awesome. And so we just want to get that taken care of so that we can have our propane in it. Normally I would have it to you in a timely fashion, but I received it yesterday.
So, we are looking to pre-buy, at $1.83.6.
Yeah.
Not unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the contract.
Hurry up and sign it.
Contract at 1,800 gallons, used 1,810 last year. And this contract will be for 1,500 gallons, so increase it to $1,800 this year, okay? And then contract at 4,000 gallons, used all last year, the same amount, keep the quantity the same, and that's for the,
Highway.
for the garage. So, I guess a motion, to approve, pre-buying our propane through Jack Horse, as discussed would be in order, so I'll move that. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Is that all you needed?
Yes,
That was
and
pretty
then
easy.
there's an additional warrant, which is for the check that Sherry will mail tomorrow.
So move that we send a check for, approve the warrant dated 9/26/24 for $10,956.80. That's for the pre-buy for the propane.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I'll pass this around so that folks can sign and put on top.
Thank you.
All right, next is a warrant, payroll warrant dated 9/24. So our folks will continue to get paid. I move that we approve that. Is there a second?
A second?
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I think I heard everybody. Next one is the warrants dated 9/23/2024. I move that we accept those. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next is the select board meeting minutes dated September 12th, 2024. I move that we accept them as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the September 12th meeting, select board meeting minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. The next is, this is a correspondence, so I don't think we need to,
I think the only thing Jennifer might wanted to talk on the dog bite course.
yeah, that's this here. So, there's no other warrants or minutes to approve. We do have a correspondence, which would be our next item on the agenda. There is a letter, I don't know if that was in the packet or not.
It was, but the incident report on the end was not in the packet.
Okay, so you want me to read that?
No, but
No.
it involves the individual that was bit. I thought that was kind of,
Yeah, I think there was some discussion as to whether or not we should put a person's information, although I do believe that it is public record, because it's a state form that I fill out, but it doesn't go anywhere other than I keep it on file. But there's an actual bite report that was not included in your packet. But what I just wanted to make everyone aware of is that we have a resident in Underhill. Their dogs are currently vaccinated. They were not registered with the town of Underhill, so we had a couple of scary hours until Sherry and I actually got in the car and drove out to their house, because we needed to know, because a person got bit and they were cycling by their house on the public roadway. So the reason that I'm bringing it to your attention, we've probably had half a dozen dog bites this year, people being bit on our roadways by dogs running out into the roads. It's an ongoing problem. We always have a handful of them. They typically are isolated incidents. The owners take it seriously. They keep their dogs under control. They do what they need to do. My concern about this particular incident and this case is that this is on the new road. And these are young dogs. And while I've only had a handful of comments about these dogs charging out. I know that even Sherry was driving by and these dogs charged out and chased after her car for a good ways. My concern is that obviously one of the two dogs is aggressive. I don't know if they're both aggressive. And I want to bring this to your attention because I don't know. I gave them 10 days to their self-quarantining their dog. I have to go back and make sure that the dog's behaving normally. That's the state law for quarantine after a dog bite. But after that, they're also required to have their dog registered. And if not, then we will need to, serve them with a violation. But my concern is that this could easily happen again. The owner of the dogs, knows that the dogs run out and charge and are doing this and is not taking any action to have it stop. And there are a lot of bikers and runners and walkers that use the new road.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring this to your attention because then today the 7 Days article came out, and if you guys read 7 Days, there's a big article about a dog that's been attacking people, and it's a huge lawsuit. And so I just want to bring this to your attention because I'm not sure what our next steps are, but I wanted to have it on your radar.
Well, I think the next step is going to be that we continue to keep our fingers crossed that, they're going to heed the warning and that things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
That you've done your due diligence and made them aware of the problem and, are dealing with this, the right way. and hopefully they'll listen, and if they don't, then, we have next steps that we'll have to consider, if they continues to be a problem with their dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, I find you to be a very reasonable person, so.
Well-written letter.
Yeah, and the letter very clearly expresses the expectation that they make a plan to contain their dogs, and I think failure to do that will require a response, and we'd have to.
I have to try to default to that most people are good intention,
I agree.
Sometimes.
Sometimes my experience and why I get to the point where I send a letter is because sometimes people need to know that they got this letter and that now the community knows about it, the select board knows about it, we're all aware. We're not just, sweeping it under the rug and hoping it goes away.
Right.
So,
And I appreciate you putting forth all the effort.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have to mention one correspondence, important to get it in the minutes.
Okay.
It was basically I don't know if it's a biannually or quarter, I think it's biannually, report from the Mount Mansfield Corporation. It's basically the towers on top of Mansfield. And this is a report we get through the Act 250 process.
Oh, yeah.
And the field measurements indicate that there is no need for RF precautionary postings in this area, with the exception of the towers themselves. So levels are safe. People are not getting nuked. Although you probably are.
But all the exposures within normal limits.
It's within normal limits. So I just wanted to have it on record that we received the report. And
thanks, Brad.
a couple of quick things in the report. I don't know if you want to speak to the regional coordinators. I threw that in there. So no longer, Regional Planning Commission is no longer going to be working with us as far as emergency management. Bob's our emergency management coordinator. But an old familiar name, Harry Shopman, he worked for the fire department here in Underhill, Jericho. He is now the regional coordinator for the Northwest, which is our district. So that's just one announcement. And one other quick thing was a comment from a resident regarding just the aesthetics of the town hall. And that's all.
Which we addressed, or we will be,
addressing.
we'll be talking about. I have two things, I guess. One is that we were successful, Matt Champlin, the fire chief, and I were successful in getting a portable cell tower delivered. It's actually being set up right now behind the fire station. Although it may not increase folks' ability to get a cell signal for the harvest market, it is the 14 band, which is the first alert that some public safety folks have, so that if someone that's a first responder or a public safety person needs to, use their cell phone, that they would get the priority, so that they can make phone calls and everything like that. So that did happen. And then the second thing is that this is the United Church of Underhill's 50th Harvest Market, and I didn't know if it would be appropriate for the select board to send them a letter congratulating them on 50 years of, hosting and doing the harvest market. So I think a nice letter drafted to them would be appropriate.
Yeah, have that ready to sign for the next meeting, and then just congratulating them on a successful.
Yeah, I think a lot of residents look forward to that. Getting to see their neighbors and spending time with them. So that's all I have. The next meeting is scheduled for October 10th, which will include a final public hearing and close out of the Harvest Crossing Planning Grant. So mark your calendars appropriately for that.
And I've allotted 15 minutes from that, 6 to 6:15. So 6 to 6 o'clock will be public comment. Then we break right into there, and then if 6:15 comes and goes, we can continue on with business.
Okay.
So with that, we have 10 minutes that we have left with Dan, and then he has his hard stop and would like to discuss some executive session, so per article.
Well, I need to pull out the executive session, it'd be personnel matter, I think, so,
Was it the last agenda for the
yeah, if you
last
pull up the
meeting?
last agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
It's in the
probably in
minutes.
the minutes.
Oh, yes.
That's the one you'd want to use.
Move to go into executive session per 1 VSA, section 313A13, the appointment, employment, evaluation of a public officer or employee. Well, that's the same, so I'll move that we go into executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of going into executive session, which would include the board and Russ Clark and Brad, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries 5-0. We are now in executive session. The time is 7:50. Please stop the recording.
So I'm gonna stop the recording, and I think what we'll do, Aaron, is just, I won't log back on. I may log back on just to catch the end of the meeting, but I don't think there's any need for anybody to stay.